Israel, love Israel. I mean, he comes from a, Jewish Orthodox background. So we, embrace one and then very strongly reject the other.
So he's pulling deeply on his theological roots of justice.
Yes.
That the Jewish people have stood for.
Yeah, yeah. It's caused a lot of controversy in the States. I mean,
That's
really,
great.
yeah.
That's super.
Yeah.
It has to come internally.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the strongest way is for it to come internally and look at themselves.
Right. No,
and
absolutely.
this isn't, and shame. I mean, this isn't who we are.
Right. And I mean, sometimes Israelis on, my side of the spectrum that say, out of frustration, right? We just want somebody to come with a really big hammer and whack us on the head. But it's obviously not going to work, right? I mean, if you don't have some domestic constituency also that is pushing, no external pressure by itself is going to work.
No. Because they've been incredibly effective.
Yeah.
May I ask you how your fellow Jews view you? Are you ostracized in some way on a personal level, or at this institution and the other observant Jews, maybe, I don't know, of course, but how you want. But how does that play out?
You have, Israel has, there's a joke that says if you have two Jews, they're going to have three opinions.
Right.
So you have a broad spectrum of views inside Israel. Of course, B'Tselem is not winning popularity contests.
Mm-hmm.
From the polling that we've done, you have maybe 20% of Israelis that are supporting B'Tselem. Even that, we were pleasantly surprised. That was more than we expected. Given that, we're an organization that is basically protecting the enemy. Right, that's how most Israelis see it. Right, defending the rights of the people who want to harm us, and restricting, criticizing, tying the hands of the people who are trying to keep us safe. Right, the military. So, if that's the way you understand the reality, then even 20% of Israelis understanding the importance of B'Tselem, we're working to increase that number, but we're not going to be. I don't think, again, that we would get a majority, right? If we could get 30-40% of the public to support us, that would be incredible.
Is that 20% of Israeli Jews or 20%
also,
of Israelis?
It's 20% also of Israeli Jews. What's interesting is Palestinian citizens of Israel are much less well-informed about B'Tselem, so it doesn't change the numbers. B'Tselem is really well-known inside Israel, and so if you have 20% that love us, you have about 40-50% that are really opposed, and then in the middle, this other 30% that's sort of our target audience to be persuading people. So you have a lot of hostility. People who think we're, traitors, harming Israel's security. All of us who work here, you have some, family, neighbors who really don't like what we're doing. I don't think I'm not sort of personally, also, I have 3 kids in the public schools and, neighbors, and go to my cousins' weddings and bar mitzvahs. There isn't a sort of isolation on that level, but certainly, plenty of arguments and criticism and hostility.
Mm-hmm.
What's the basis for your activism? Theological, philosophical? What is it for you?
So I'm secular Jew, but grew up in I'm from Northern California originally. Grew up in a Jewish Zionist, family and environment. The idea that social justice is part of the Jewish tradition was very, sort of self-evident in terms of our understanding. It's hard to separate out, Northern California is a place where you have liberal, sort of humanist values in general. Part of that is from being Jewish and part of it sort of a broader, sort of educational upbringing. And then, I mean, I initially came to Israel. Initially, most American Jews, you don't learn about, you first learn about Israel in this sort of really rosy colored glasses kind of way, right? I mean, sort of the perfect making the desert bloom and the light unto the nations. And I mean, those aren't cliches, right? The way American Jews, you come and see Israel, it's really like a miracle. After 2,000 years of exile, all our dreams fulfilled. So then it's quite a shock, if that's the way you're first introduced to Israel, to then understand that the situation is a lot more complicated, that there's a lot of things, I mean, there's plenty of things to be proud of when it comes to Israel, and then some things to be really ashamed of. And for me, I mean, B'Tselem was a way of reconciling that sort of dissonance, right? That love for Israel, and I moved here, to raise my children here, and yet that there are a lot of problems that need to be corrected. So then B'Tselem is a way to be, bringing that sort of myth of Israel, bringing the reality closer to that.
Are you getting support from American Jews in terms of human rights advocacy, and how do you do also education for some?
So we have an office in Washington, 2 people, a small office that is focusing both on the policy community in Washington, I mean, the government and Congress, as well as, all of the think tanks and the press, but also working on the larger American population, and the Jewish community is really an important target audience for us. I mean, I think you have the same spectrum among American Jews that you do in Israel. I mean, in some ways, well, maybe American Jews are even more liberal and progressive as a whole than Israeli Jews, but there is a real discomfort about speaking out and criticizing Israel from the United States, right? We don't live there, we're not the ones who are subject to the security dangers. Who are we to be criticizing? So then, I mean, it's an added challenge to say to people, in fact, by not criticizing, you're making things worse, right? I mean, that perpetuating policies that not only are not good for justice and human rights, that are actually harmful for Israel as well. So we have a core group of support among American Jews, but again, smaller than it should be, and we're working to expand.
Now, I'm wondering, how was it, when you came to Israel with all these dreams and so on, how did you become aware of the matrix of control? Because that had to take some digging.
Yes,
I would think.
Yes. It's funny, someone came to me just last week, and he came on a trip with the New Israel Fund. And he said, I've been to Israel 20 times, and it's the first time that I spoke with Arabs, right? I mean, 20% of Israel is Arabs, not to mention the, Palestinians. But it's, you're on this sort of, you have blinders on. A lot of people, come for years, people even live here, and you sort of never take them off. First, when I was in college, I came on a program that also had a component of studying at a Palestinian university, and that was, I mean, really a huge shock. Right, to hear that there's another narrative, that they kept saying the same, talking about the same events that I had always learned about, but I'm like, no, it didn't happen that way, and I never knew it happened that way. So it's a big shock, and there is some grief, right, to feel like, I don't know, you've been misled, and what something that you loved turns out not to be the way you thought it was. So, I mean, I think that same process a lot of people go through, right? I mean, also I came here when I was 16,